be released rebirth.
Since earliest historic times, the kings and the people of this land presented a unique and fascinating culture. The earliest Indic inscriptions we can read are of Emperor Ashoka's period in the 3rd century BC. Following the example of the Achaemenid Persians, he made inscriptions on pillars and edicts on rocks. But that is where the similarity ends. While the Persian kings made extensive statements about their personal glory, valor, conquests, titles, and dynasties, Ashoka does not even mention his own name in most of his edicts. He is just referred to as Devanampiya Piyadasi, beloved of the divine, and one whose vision is filled with adoration. These inscriptions of the 3rd century BC are a remarkable record of a compassionate and cosmopolitan vision, a vision which has not been surpassed by any ruler till today. He says, "His sacred majesty does reverence to men of all sects. A man must not do reverence only to his own sect, while disparaging the sects of others."
Within his edicts, he is very clear about not actually saying that, look at me, I'm a Buddhist, therefore, we will have Buddhist principles in my empire. Instead, he constantly talks, as you say, about the dharma and about the right way.
It is only by taking interest in other people's religion that one is serving dharma.
Emperor Ashoka's inscriptions show that he visited many Buddhist pilgrimage sites. However, the great caves which were excavated out of the hills of Barabar in Bihar in his time and that of his grandson Dashratha were for the ascetic sect of Ajivakas. We find from here onwards, for at least the next 1,000 years, a fluid tradition in which members of the same family freely worshipped and patronized the stupas and temples of the Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu faiths.
One of the things that we have to be careful about is to not think in terms of the fixed and rigid religious categories and religious boundaries that we are familiar with today.
It seems that throughout history, the ordinary householder has been willing to show his generosity to more than one religious order or faith.
But there is plenty of evidence from inscriptions indicating that people, whether it is ordinary people and more so members of royal families, especially kings, did extend patronage towards religious establishments of different denominations.
The earliest surviving Buddhist art of the world are the sculpted railings of stupas in the 2nd century BC. Ashoka's pillars had only images which were common to all faiths, such as the chakra, which stands for cosmic order. The Bharut stupa railings, originally in central India, bring us for the worshipped Hindu deities. In the 1st century AD, under the rule of the Satavahana kings, great entrance gateways were made to the large stupa in Sanchi. They continued Buddhist themes. Inscriptions show that the Satavahana rulers followed Hindu deities and were fully generous to the Buddhist Sangha. It is significant that at least the first 600 years of surviving Buddhist art was all created under the rule of kings who worshipped Hindu deities. The deities seen most often in the Buddhist and Jaina monuments of the period are yakshas and yakshis. These embody the spirit of nature and serve to remind us of the divinity which underlies all that is around us. The first formalized deity seen in Buddhist and Jaina art is Gajalakshmi, Lakshmi with elephants who shower water upon her. Like the Yakshi, she also represents the bountiful abundance of nature. Lakshmi continues till today in Hindu worship and in Buddhist worship in Japan and other countries.
Today we are surprised at the fact that they have so many things in common, but it is because we are looking at these as religions. But we have to be aware of the fact that these so-called religions, the Hindu, Buddhist and Jain religions, have been they're a construct, they're a colonial construct created by people who were writing, the colonial scholars who were writing about these faiths.
There are no gods in the early philosophic vision of India. There are deities, deities who are significations of concepts and qualities. The qualities are within us, and by responding to these deities brought to us in art, we awaken those fine aspects. In ancient India, people were free to adore the deity of their personal choice. Within families, husbands, wives and children often followed the path of different deities.
It's a misconception that many people think these images of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the representation of the gods now. But they are the deities. Deities means one of the aspects of the Chetsikas and Chitta, because it's a consciousness, it's a factor of one of the consciousnesses. So they are not truly existing.
We find, for example, that in a Buddhist temple, while the principal deity, the object of worship would be Buddha, but the scheme of sculptures in the temple as a whole would also show Hindu gods like Indra or Agni being depicted. It's only the degree of importance given to deities which changes in different religions.
In Western India, the 2nd century BC ushered in one of the greatest periods of the entire art of Buddhism. Over a period of about 1,000 years, more than 1,200 caves were grown out of the mountains of the Western Ghats. The first phase of prolific excavation was from the 2nd century BC till the 3rd century AD. Great Buddhist prayer halls and viharas for the residence of monks were made under the rule of the Satavahanas and the Kshatrapas. Though these kings revered Hindu deities, they patronized all religious establishments. The Buddhist cave number 18 at Bhaja of the 2nd century BC brings us some of the earliest known representations of the Hindu deities Indra and Surya. They continue in worship till today in Hinduism and in Buddhist temples in Japan. A Gana of the 2nd century BC, made at the Buddhist site of Pitalkhora, carries an inscription which states that he was the donation of a goldsmith, Kanhadasa, which means servant of Krishna, a Hindu deity. One of the grandest Buddhist caves is the great Chaitya at Karle of the 1st century AD. Inscriptions record the names of numerous individual donors who paid for the carving of various parts of the cave and its pillars. These include Greeks. Many Greeks and Romans visited and even settled in India during this period of flourishing trade. Many of them are known to have become devout followers of Indic faiths. Among the earliest known Hindu antiquities is the Doordarshan pillar at Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh of the 2nd century BC. The inscription on it states that it was set up by a Greek devotee by that name, in honor of Vasudeva, or Lord Vishnu.
The inscription dated around 150 AD, found at Nasik, inscription issued by one Gautami Balashri, who was the mother of from various classes of life to the Buddhist monastic order. So it is obvious that though the rulers had their religious preferences, there was no pressure on the population to follow the religion of the ruler.
The only deities in early Indian art were Yakshis, Nagas and Lakshmi. There were no figures made of Buddha, Jaina Tirthankaras or Hindu deities. These came to be made for the first time in the 1st century AD under the rule of the Kushanas, whose homeland was in southern China. The inscriptions show that the Kushana rulers worshipped Hindu deities themselves. However, in keeping with the Indic traditions, they were fully benevolent to Buddhist and Jaina establishments. The fertile valley of the Krishna River was the cradle of civilization in the eastern Deccan. This area became one of the greatest centers of Buddhism, and over 140 early Buddhist sites have been listed in this region.